Most people are thinking about AI agents backwards. They're thinking, should I build a sales agent? Should I build some marketing agent? Should I build a customer service agent? And honestly, I think that's the wrong starting point because an agent by itself is not a product. The product is the workflow you develop for the agent. What sources need to be read to execute on a customer service level? Does it need to know some sort of tonality that it has? Does the agent need to know the can says and the cannot says? What tools can it touch? Like, can it touch your Gmail and actually draft and compose an email? And then if it executes based on the parameters you give it, where does it log this stuff? Where does it show proof of A, what it did, and B, why it did it? And that's why controlling the autonomy of a workflow with an agent harness is very important. In this video, you're gonna learn that Hermes Agent or any type of agent harness is not just an agent. It is an operating layer that will automate, make your business more efficient, and it works for any business model. So before we get into what Hermes Agent is and all that, first, you need a business workflow. And honestly, you should have workflows anyways. If it wasn't for agents, think of the processes you do in a business, whether it's multiple people involved from step A all the way to step Z. What does it take to get that workflow done? This could be as simple as creating content for my social media. Okay. What is the goal of the content we're gonna create? We have to map out what we're gonna do with this. And then there's a step-by-step process. Are we gonna go and take product photography? We're gonna get a studio. We're gonna use AI to generate images. How do we plan to do that? And then we have to obviously create captions. Who is this target audience for? And develop essentially a workflow that you know works for your business. And once you realize, and the best workflows to attach an agent harness to, in my opinion, first, are the ones that you drop the ball on the most. And not necessarily you, but the one that you notice has the most mistakes along the process. Because the agent harness essentially is supposed to make life easier for us. It's supposed to make things more efficient. And that's the goal here. And step two, the agent harness or the operating system, the layer that is rich in context of what your business does, is arguably the most important process here. You have a business workflow and you're strapping a harness to it. Now the harness is only going to be able to work based on the OS that you've developed for it. So in this OS, you need to have as much context as possible. I'm sure you've seen TikToks out there where people are using Obsidian and you could see all the files of what's going on in their business. That's essentially what's going on here. Developing a high profile OS that is working correctly with canonical files that are connected all sorts of ways. Clutter is not being added. Everything is clear. Rules are defined. That right there, A, is extremely hard to do and needs a lot of skill and experience how to do it. And that's why we offer a service to do that for businesses. But B, if it's not done correctly, the third step, which is the agent, is going to fail on the workflow. So you need to make sure you have the correct harness. And I use Hermes Agent as my harness. I think it's the best of the best because it has right out of the box a lot of skills that can be used. And also I think it's a great learning harness. Comparably to OpenCloud, this could change if this video becomes outdated. But for right now, I noticed when I was using Hermes on day one, by day 30, oh my gosh, it was like an actual employee that was helping me. And a lot of it though is because of the OS that my business partner and I built for our business model. And then the agent is obviously the agent within the OS that is working the workflow. So going back to the original example, if it's a social media post, you may only want that agent to do certain steps along the way, pass things along. It could even be as simple as taking finished work from one department and sending it to another department and continually reminding them so they, don't drop the ball on it. The agent is important because there's a sole markdown file and there needs to be a proper prompt instruction into it so it is totally guardrailed on the task. And the workflow documents and how we build it at least really should guard these agents where they're not hallucinating or going off on their own tasks. They're stuck in their ways. And of course, the receipt, in my opinion, the most underrated part of all that I do with Hermes Agent, needs to log what it did. That way we know if it made mistakes, we can learn from the mistakes, go figure out what was done, and go from there. So having a whole entire folder structure that's just on receipts and organizing so we know where they came from and why this wasn't there so it's not clutter, very important, super underrated. Agents are messy because it's this hype buzzword right now. And that's kind of my biggest problem with it. is that people just think you can plug in an agent, it's going to do what you want it to do, and that's it. But it's not the case, and maybe it will be that easy eventually, but right now it's just not. And that's why the wrong question is, which agent should I build? It really needs to come from a place of which workflow should run first. Which workflow do I know is the most efficient for my business and could be improved upon with the agent? Or the other example I gave earlier was, what workflow is really important to our business, but people are dropping the ball along the way. It's not something that should be done, but it is happening. An agent harness strapped to it could improve it. When I'm working with clients, I like to always ask them, what are your top 3 workflows that is effectively generating revenue for you? Those are the workflows in my eyes that need the most love, the most attention, and those are the ones that can benefit from an agent harness. It's really not something you should overcomplicate. Just know, okay, my business is really good at this, this, and this, and these are the workflows that support that. Those are the ones we want to build out first. And like I said earlier, the harness is all about the sources, the tools, the approval, and the receipts that you give it. Now, looking at our OS that we have for what we call the Client AI OS, you could see I have what I call my skeleton folders, which are the top folders, okay? It's very important how they're mapped. Governance is the most important because it's rules and safety. Home is my daily cockpit, which is basically essentially things that need to get done, things that are effective. It's kind of more of a broad folder. Brain is obviously target audience, our TAM list, workflows, self-explanatory, and so forth. But if we didn't develop this correctly, where we are basically attaching this folder right here as labs, so all of our ideas, drafts, but if we never made a rule for it, for example, where it's like, okay, if we just did deep research on a new target audience, it goes to lab originally. But if it is something that needs to get promoted to the sales side of things, we need to make sure that we remove it from lab, move it to sales, because it's something that we're going to utilize a part of our sales process. The problem is, if you don't make rules in place or think like this, that layer gets lost, and all of a sudden you're duplicating markdown files, and trust me, the OS will get cluttered. With my ecom brand, we weren't doing this. We did not have a clean OS. We had over 2,000 markdown files inside of it, and so many of the folders were outdated, not connected correctly, and that's why the agent was failing within it. Our Hermes agent just was starting to get overwhelmed, didn't know where to go. That's why these sources are so important, because if you want to give it, like we talked about in the original example, content creation workflow, it needs the proper sources of what your brand is, what your identity is like. Is there certain brand colors and guidelines that you stick to, or fonts? Is there certain images that you want to make sure you do or don't post? Is there a certain social media platform you refuse to post on, or you want to post on all of them? These sources are what's going to help the agent work better. And then when you give it the tools, there's a lot of MCPs out there. Higgsfield is one that you can generate videos from, or APIs essentially. It can actually go and do some of the things for you. We're really there nowadays, which is what's awesome. And of course, add in layers of approvals. I don't want my customer service agent just firing off emails without getting approvals from me. But it does make life a lot easier, where it's reading the inbox, giving me the drafts every 24 hours, and then I just say, approve, 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 edit this one, approve, approve, simple. And that's really the key thing with the harness that we need to make sure we strap in. And the receipts, obviously, like I mentioned before, just tie into all this, so we are tracking what these agents are doing, just like we would with any other employee, essentially. So what this looks like in practice, and I put it as the first loop here, is essentially the harness is going to read, draft, ask, act, and log. Let's just say we're a lead gen business of a roofing company. A form submission comes into the website. You have built a agent workflow where it's supposed to read all the form submissions that come in, but then you've also given it sources on how to score the lead, right? So it gives it a lead score now. So that way you can filter based off that score. You know what's coming in, what's spam, etc. Then, if it needs to draft a response, hey, let's schedule a demo call with this person. It will already get going on the ones that have a score of 80 or higher, let's just say, and draft a response. And then it might ask you, hey, we got this lead. They're looking for this type of roof that we sell, and here's the demo times that I suggest we schedule with them. And that's the asking part. I approve, and then it acts. It executes on whatever the case may be, and then it logs it. In theory, that sounds easy, but that really is. That's kind of how it works when it's working correctly. None of this matters if you do not have a clean operating system. And I cannot stress this enough, is the most important part. I probably will make more videos on little nuances of this and how we do things. But that, once again, is why I have a service company, because I feel like me and my partner have excelled in a way of delivering these OSs and really finding ways to make them better. And that's kind of the name of the game, to be honest. If you don't have an OS that is so proper, trust me, Hermes really won't look as good as it can be. And that's exactly why I don't want people to start with, what AI agent should I build? You're totally looking at it wrong, and you're just probably just gun-ho on the whole word AI. You just want to implement AI. You don't even know. What workflows are the best case scenarios to apply AI harnesses to automate and make more efficient for your business? What's the point of adding in these agent harnesses and possibly spending these insane amount of APIs, which it's looking like it's going to get even worse to, if it's going to make life worse for you? AI is just a buzzword at the end of the day. We need to put it to practical terms, and I believe agent harnesses like Hermes is one of the best things you can do for any business model. Remember this, the agent is not the product. The operating system around the agent is. And if you like these videos, please like, comment. I'm a small-time YouTube creator. I truly believe that the experience I have of creating the OSs, making Hermes Agent and OpenClaw agents just work on these unreal levels, is truly something that people can learn from, and I love to teach. So if you could comment, give me feedback, subscribe, you obviously know it goes a long way for the algorithm, and it would help me get this information to more businesses at the end of the day.